We basically faked our first users.
That's Alexis Ohanian, Reddit's co-founder, casually admitting that everything you think you know about Reddit is bullshit. Every single post you're seeing right now, every upvote, every comment that made you laugh or rage or think, it all started with fake accounts talking to themselves. 99% of Reddit's early posts were fabricated. Not 50%, not 80%, 99%.
For the first few weeks of Reddit, I'd say 99% of submissions were either me or Steve.
But here's where it gets really messed up. They turned those fake conversations into a $10 billion company. And now half the internet gets their news from a platform that was literally built on lies. If Reddit could fake its way to becoming a billion-dollar company, what else have we been lied to about? Before Reddit became the internet's town square, Alexis Ohanian and Steve Huffman were just two college friends with a spectacularly failed startup called My Mobile Menu, a way to order food through text messages. Now, this was back in 2005 when smartphones were barely around and texting was still clunky. Safe to say, it didn't work out. After their mobile ordering dreams crashed and burned, they found themselves in the offices of Y Combinator, the startup accelerator that would later mint billion-dollar companies like Airbnb and Dropbox. Paul Graham, Y Combinator's founder, had some brutal feedback for their food ordering app and advised them to build something that people actually want. And so they built their link-sharing platform in just 3 weeks. 3 weeks. The coding was fast, the design was simple, and the launch was completely underwhelming. Their revolutionary platform had exactly 0 users. Not slow growth. 0. The digital equivalent to throwing a party and having nobody show up. In the startup world, this is called the cold start problem. How do you build a community when you have no community? How do you create buzz when there's nothing to buzz about? Most startups die right there, in this desolate wasteland between brilliant idea and actual traction. But Ohanian and Huffman weren't most founders. They were about to write the handbook on artificial growth. They just didn't know it yet. What happened next would make social media marketing textbooks for decades. Faced with a ghost town of a website, Ohanian and Huffman made a decision that would change the internet forever. They became their own users. Not just a few test accounts. Hundreds of them. Reddit is no fun if the page is empty. So they filled it. Every morning, they'd log into dozens of fake accounts, each with carefully crafted usernames and posting histories. They'd submit links, upvote content, write comments, and even argue with each other. Imagine 2 guys in a small apartment having heated debates with themselves under different usernames about the latest tech news. According to Ohanian's own confession, they controlled 99% of Reddit's early submissions. 99%. That means for every genuine user post, there were 99 fake ones. The community that early visitors saw was essentially a 2-person theater troupe performing for an audience of 1. But here's the brilliant part. They didn't just spam random content. That would be stupid. They studied what made successful online communities tick. They created diverse posting patterns, different comment styles, and even manufactured disagreements to make the discussions feel authentic. They were essentially method actors, except their stage was the internet, and their audience was potential users who had no idea they were watching a performance. The economic insight here is subtle but profound. They weren't just faking users. They were faking demand. In traditional economics, demand drives supply. But Ohanian and Huffman flipped that script. They created artificial supply to manufacture real demand. Every fake post, every manufactured upvote, was essentially a small investment in the illusion of popularity. And of course it worked, because nothing attracts a crowd like another crowd. Human psychology is wonderfully predictable. Show people a restaurant with a line out the door, and they'll assume the food is incredible. Show them an empty restaurant, and they'll assume it's terrible, even if it serves the exact same food. Online communities work the same way. As real users started trickling in, they saw what appeared to be a thriving community. Active discussions, diverse content, engaged users debating everything from programming languages to political scandals. They had no idea they were joining a conversation that was 99% artificial. The newcomers started participating, adding their own links and comments to what seemed like an already vibrant ecosystem. This is where the magic happened. Real users began interacting with fake users, creating genuine moments of engagement. The artificial community started producing authentic connections. It was like watching a puppet show slowly come to life, with the marionettes gradually becoming real people. The genius move came when they introduced subreddits in 2008. Instead of one general forum, users could create specialized communities around specific interests. This wasn't just about organization. Oh no, it was about that psychological ownership. When someone creates or moderates a subreddit, they're not just participating in a community, they're building one. They're invested in its success. Suddenly, the platform wasn't just a place to read news, it was a place to belong. The fake foundation had become real infrastructure. Users who joined for the content stayed for the community. The illusion had become self-sustaining, feeding on its own authenticity. What started as two guys talking to themselves in an empty room had become millions of people talking to each other in thousands of different rooms. The manufactured buzz had created genuine buzz. The fake community had birthed real communities. By 2006, Reddit was attracting millions of users monthly. Not bad for a site that started with 0 real users just months earlier. The traffic numbers were impressive, the engagement metrics were strong, and the growth trajectory looked unstoppable. Any investor looking at the data would see a rocket ship. Condé Nast, the publishing giant behind Vogue and New Yorker, certainly saw it that way. They acquired Reddit for somewhere between $10 and $20 million. The exact figure was never disclosed, but it was enough to make Ohanian and Huffman millionaires before they turned 25. Ironically, Condé Nast wasn't just buying a website with millions of users. They were buying a website whose entire early success was built on fake users. The manufactured engagement that fooled early visitors also fooled sophisticated investors with teams of analysts and due diligence experts. But was it really fraud? Technically, no. Ohanian and Huffman never lied to investors about user numbers. They just never mentioned that most of those early users were themselves. It's, a gray area that highlights a fundamental truth about startup valuations. Sometimes the story matters more than the substance. From an economic perspective, Reddit wasn't profitable when Condé Nast bought it. It wouldn't be profitable for years. But again, profitability wasn't the point here. The point was scale. And scale was exactly what the fake user strategy had delivered. In the attention economy, eyeballs are currency. And Reddit had plenty of eyeballs, even if some of them belonged to its own founders. The acquisition set a precedent that still echoes through Silicon Valley today. The message was clear. Artificial engagement could translate into real money. The illusion of community could become a genuine business asset. Success has a way of revealing character, and Reddit's growing influence began exposing the cracks in its foundation. The platform that started with manufactured authenticity was about to face a series of scandals that would make the original deception look quaint. The first major crisis came in 2013 during the Boston Marathon bombing. Reddit users, feeling empowered by their collective intelligence, decided to play detective. They analyzed photos, shared theories, and eventually zeroed in on a suspect, Sunil Tripathi, a Brown University student who had been missing for weeks. The problem? Tripathi was innocent. He'd been dead for weeks, having taken his own life before the bombing even occurred. But that didn't stop Reddit's army of amateur investigators from spreading his name and photos across the internet, turning a grieving family's private tragedy into a public nightmare. The family said they received hundreds of threatening and anti-Islamic messages, though they are not Muslim. All the sentiment and help we had received to help find Sunil switched over and said he was a terrorist, says Judy Tripathi, the mother. The incident shattered Reddit's self-image as a force for good. The same community dynamics that made the platform feel authentic, the crowdsourced verification, the collective intelligence, the democratic voting system, had produced a lynch mob. The site's leader wrote that it hoped the lessons learned from Sunil Tripathi would help make the online community more sensitive in the future. But the ethics problem ran deeper than user behavior. In 2016, it was revealed that Steve Huffman, who had returned as CEO, had been secretly editing users' comments. Not just deleting them, actually changing the words people had written. The revelation that the platform's own leadership was manipulating content behind the scenes felt like a betrayal of everything Reddit claimed to represent. The connection to Reddit's fake user origins was impossible to ignore. A platform that started by manufacturing authentic community had evolved into one where authentic community was being manufactured by its own executives. The manipulation had never stopped. It had just become more sophisticated. Aaron Swartz, Reddit's often forgotten co-founder who joined through a merger, represented what the platform could have been. A genuine advocate for internet freedom and open access to information. Swartz's tragic suicide in 2013 felt symbolic of Reddit's lost innocence. The idealistic hacker who believed in the democratizing power of the internet was gone, leaving behind a platform increasingly defined by corporate interests and ethical compromises. If Reddit's early fake users were the foundation, then what happened in 2021 was the skyscraper, the GameStop saga, where Reddit users from our Wall Street bets coordinated to drive up the stock of a failing video game retailer, proved that the platform's influence had transcended the internet. A beautiful paradox here. Actually, the community that started as fake performance art had gained the power to manipulate real financial markets. The same crowd dynamics that Ohanian and Huffman had artificially created with fake accounts were now being used by real users to create artificial stock movements. It was fake users creating fake engagement to attract real users who created real engagement to generate fake stock prices that had real financial consequences. The GameStop squeeze cost hedge funds billions and made some Reddit users millionaires. It also put Reddit squarely in the crosshairs of financial regulators and mainstream media attention. This newfound power made Reddit's IPO ambitions more serious. By 2021, the company was valued at over $10 billion. But the path to public trading wasn't smooth. In 2023, Reddit's decision to charge for API access, the programming interface that allowed third-party apps to function, sparked massive user protests. Thousands of subreddits went private, users abandoned the platform, and moderators revolted. The community that had grown from fake users was now powerful enough to threaten the company's business model. The API controversy revealed Reddit's fundamental tension. It needed to be profitable for investors while remaining free and open for users. The same artificial community that had attracted Condé Nast's millions was now demanding authentic community control. The fake foundation was fighting the real building constructed on top of it. Reddit's origin story isn't just about one website, it's about the internet itself. The platform that billions of people use to discuss everything from memes to world events was built on a foundation of manufactured authenticity. But we all know the twist. That foundation worked. The fake users became real users. The artificial community became genuine communities. The manufactured engagement became authentic engagement. The lie became the truth, or at least a version of it that millions of people found valuable enough to build their digital lives around. But Reddit's deception didn't stay hidden in the archives of internet history. It became a blueprint. Today, buying fake followers, manufacturing viral content, and creating artificial engagement are standard practices across social media. The growth hacking industry that helps startups manufacture early traction is built on the same principles that Ohanian and Huffman pioneered with their fake Reddit accounts. The questions that Reddit's origin story raises are surely uncomfortable ones. How much of the internet's organic growth is actually artificial? How many of the online communities we trust started with the same manufactured authenticity? When we interact with content online, how often are we unknowingly participating in someone else's elaborate performance? Maybe the most unsettling realization is that it doesn't matter. Reddit's fake users created real value. The artificial community produced authentic connections. The manufactured engagement generated genuine discussions that have shaped politics, markets, and culture. The internet was never organic. It was always a performance, a collective agreement to treat digital interactions as if they were real human connections. Reddit just made that performance visible, then showed us how to make it invisible again. In the end, Reddit's greatest trick wasn't fooling its users. It was convincing them that being fooled was worth it. The lie that built Reddit became the truth that sustained it. And in a world where the line between authentic and artificial gets blurrier every day, maybe that's the most honest thing of all. What else do we trust online that started with the same lie? The answer might be simpler than we think. Everything.